Welcome back, guys, to another video. In this video, we're going to be going over the law of specificity, how we can use the law of specificity to benefit our workout routine, our overall routines, and everything in general. As when we specify our time or we focus our time on something specific, we get better results in all forms of training. And you can apply this principle in isolation movements, and you see it applied in when you're focusing on a career and subjects similar to this. So without further ado, let's get into the video. First thing first, guys, when I want to preface this at the beginning. Last video, for example, which is an example for the law of specificity, I was explaining how you guys can get increased vascularity and how these increases vascularity can be achieved through focusing on certain workouts and a specific diet. On this video, I mentioned all the tools that you can use to do so, and I believe I also mentioned, I think I might have forgotten, but when you get super increased vascularity, there's this thing that you get called varicose veins that are very, very unhealthy. And I was going over how this diet and this workout routine or whatever will increase your vascularity. And some people, let's say you took that and you used it, you'd increase your overall vascularity, but it might decrease your health, as I was just saying with the varicose veins. Since when you're focusing in on one thing, you're bound to miss out on something else. This increased vascularity could then lead to varicose veins, which are these veins that you get when they're like bumpy and they're kind of curled up, and they're very, very unhealthy. We don't want any of those on us. So when we're using the law of specificity, it is important that we understand how it works and how using it will limit our capabilities in other spheres of success and achievement, since we're focusing in on different groups of things and we're focusing in on one thing. We can't focus in on everything. As how everybody knows, you can't be good at everything. You can focus in on some things and be good at some things, but there's so much for us to do in life in general that we can't be perfect at everything. So this applies perfect to workout routines. If you focus in more on legs, your upper body will undoubtedly suffer a little bit, and it might be a moderate amount of suffering depending on how much you focus in on legs. If you split your focus between all groups, all of them will benefit, but since you're being less specific in your training, they won't reach their maximum potential. You need to understand that when training or when doing everything, it's all about controlling how much effort you want to put, or how many, I like to think about it, utility points or potential points. So I have a certain amount of potential points in my day. The more potential points I put in a certain area, subject area, the more I get out of it, the more value I get in that specific area. So if I decide to spend more of those subject points learning math than reading, I'll become much better at math than reading. But if I decide to put more of those subject points into training legs instead of training upper body, then I'll get thicker legs and upper body. And this law of specificity can be used in many ways to benefit us in our workout routine. A good example of this would be genetic imbalances. I like to use Jay Cutler as an example. Jay Cutler has humongous legs and has had great leg genetics. He's a bodybuilder, an Olympia champion bodybuilder, which is the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world, pretty much. And he was in the open class, which is the biggest division out of all of them, the most well-known division. And pretty much what would happen is that his legs were too big when he was training. Every little bit of effort he put into his legs would be worth 2 times the actual value, or it'll appear 2 times more visibly than the effort he put on his upper body. Not to say that he had bad upper body genetics, because his genetics were great all around, but since he had so much genetic potential in his legs, he had to apply the law of specificity and decrease the amount of isolation work on his legs and focus more on isolation work on his upper body. As we isolate down on our goals, we become kind of like a metal. We think of forging a metal to take away its impurities, or we put in this super hot heat and we smash it down to get it as dense as possible. And this is how you make Damascus. steel. So if you're getting a piece of steel, you're smashing it down in heat, it gets compressed and compressed and compressed and compressed, getting denser and denser and denser. So we're doing with ourselves, especially when we're doing training. We're compressing ourselves, becoming better versions of ourselves, slowly breaking down all the impurities and really perfecting the art of working out. We get better technique in our workouts. We get better form, which will then lead to better results in the end, and will also lead us, depending on how much effort we put into each body part, to an external appearance change. So our bodies will slowly transform into what we force them into. If you really think about it, you're kind of sculpting. You're a sculptor or a forger, or you're creating yourself. When you start off, you might look horrible when you start training, but as you isolate and use the law of specificity on certain body parts, let's say you want a big back or you want big shoulders, your body will slowly adapt and create this vision, or this picture you have of yourself in your mind. And the more vivid the picture and the more effort you put into it, the better you'll turn out looking, and the more closely related to your mental image you will become. I try to apply this law of specificity in all forms of training, and not just training, in life in general. The more I specify into a specific group of things or one thing in general, the better I perform in that one subject area. We have so many distractions, so many things that we have to focus on, that we can't put 100% of effort into everything. It's just impossible. So I always try to make sure that whatever I do, I do it with 100% focus. And it can be kind of irritating whenever you have to do something, because there's some things that just pop up in life in general that you can't put 100% focus on because there's surprises. And when this happens, you have to be able to adapt it, to be able to change your overall focus. Like I said, in the day you have a certain amount of potential points. But if you spent your day and you spent, let's say, 6 hours of potential points, which you're using time as a measurement of, on this game, let's say it's Pokemon, and you forgot to save your save file, then those 6 hours of potential points you might believe are wasted, but really they're not. You have to see the bright side in everything. Everything has a positive in it. I like to think that way, because now that you spent those 6 hours playing on the Pokemon thing, you're much less likely to forget to save the save file the next time. And on top of that, despite you messing up, you could have spent the 6 hours doing something much worse. There's many things that you could do that are mistakes, so always try to think positive. Although that does not really have much to do with the law of specificity, optimistic training will improve the effects of the law of specificity as you apply it. As you apply it in your training, if you have a positive outlook, if you think and trust the process of training, you're much more likely to stick to it and believe that it'll come out the way you want it to. Since your training takes many months, if not years, for you to see a physical difference, you have to have that. The mental image is very important when applying it in terms of training. I use it a lot. I always try to imagine how my physique I want it to look like, and I slowly sculpt it with my diet, with my training, with everything. I try to make sure that my body adapts the ways that I want it to, and if I do it and I think hard enough on it, I'm much more likely to achieve it than if I think negatively and don't believe that I'll be able to do it and have no mental image, because then without mental image you don't have any direction. And if you see my video on the 3 tools that'll keep you most consistent in your training, you'll see that having a goal, specific, measurable, attainable goal, I call them MAD goals: measurable, attainable, and deadline driven. These goals, and I didn't make that up by myself, that's something that I've seen online. It's not something I came up with. These types of goals will lead you to the most amount of success when applying the law of specificity. Compound lifts and reducing the amount of focus on the lift can also be beneficial. The law of specificity doesn't just work in the amount of specific effort you put into one muscle group. You might be someone who doesn't want to get super big body part in one area specifically. You want to get big, somewhat moderate size and everything. And this, you can use the law of specificity in reverse. You can reverse the operation like in math, and you put less effort into something to get better results in other areas. This is another way in which you can use it to benefit yourself and see major results. Many people do it like this, where they just use the reverse instead of using the specific effects where they specify on one thing specifically. to get the most out of that one thing. They specify less on something and try to spread around the potential points on more things than just one. But that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.